I think the difference for the LGBT community is that a lot of times that community can hide, and throughout the course of history that's what's happened. There's always been a battle for equal rights, but people can pass as not being gay. A lot of people can, not everybody can. But because of that, you didn't have to face the severe amounts of discrimination and prejudice just for the way you looked the minute you walked in the door. You know, the first impression, people actually have a moment usually when they can accept you for who you are before they find out that you identify as LGBTQ. And the African American community has never been able to do that because right away when they walk through the door, people look at the color of their skin and then discriminate instantly. So I think there's a difference that way, but yet some of the equal rights fights and the battles and the treatments of people are very similar. So I think the battles are the same, but I think that the experience of the discrimination is a little bit...
So speaking of the past, this is Anita Bryant. She's a singer, and in the 70s, she was the spokeswoman for orange juice. She also headed the movement against homosexuality. Now, Anita worked with legislator John Briggs on something called Proposition 6, which, if passed, would ban homosexuals and possibly anyone who supported homosexuals from teaching in public schools. Anita said they were scared the gays would recruit the children. I think there was a deeper motive there.
Two things. One of them just being hate, like they don't understand how these other people are, so they just naturally hate it or become scared of it or whatever.
You know, it's hard to say. I do think that they actually believe that gay people recruit. Yes, I believe that they believed that. You know, I think about this sometimes, and I'm not really sure where people's motives are. As hard as it is for me to say this, I think people like Anita Bryant, and here in Wisconsin we have kind of a version of her. Her name is Julian Appling. She's the CEO of the Wisconsin Family Council. I think she really believes that she is doing what's best. I really think that in her heart she believes, I am protecting children, I am protecting families, I am making society better, and gay people are making society worse.
Because of the general consensus of the population, thinking that homosexuality is more of a mental illness than anything else. When people think homosexual and they're homophobic, they immediately think perversion, pedophilia, things like that. I think they were more trying to stop pedophilia. I'm not saying it's right.
I tend not to ascribe deeper motives to people when ignorance is an option, I guess. In my mind, I think that there's still a lot of people that are ignorant, and even people then and people now who are ignorant about people who are different than them. And I can genuinely see people believing that by exposing your kids to gay people and the ideas of gay people, that they're going to somehow, that's going to make them gay. It's certainly possible that there's a more sinister motive behind it, and I wouldn't doubt that some people have more sinister motives, but I think that the way you get a movement like that to become a big deal is by playing on people's ignorance, basically.
Oh, that takes me way back. Anita Bryant. I remember her commercials on television.
The orange juice commercials.
The orange juice commercials. Yeah, was there another motive? I don't know. I think their religious ties and backgrounds were probably the main motive.
Being over religious.
Religious beliefs.
Religious beliefs. The Bible. Okay, I can accept that. I can't deny someone their chosen spiritual path. But there's just one thing. Aaron Sorkin's The West Wing asked a question I'd like answered.
I'm sorry. You're Dr. Jenna Jacobs, right?
Yes, sir.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
The awesome impact of the airwaves and how that translates into the furthering of our national discussions, but obviously also how it can, forgive me, Dr. Jacobs, are you an MD?
A PhD.
A PhD?
Yes, sir.
In psychology?
No, sir.
Theology?
No.
Social work?
I have a PhD in English literature.
I'm asking because on your show people call in for advice and you go by the name Dr. Jacobs on your show, and I didn't know if maybe your listeners were confused by that and assumed you had advanced training in psychology, theology, or healthcare.
I don't believe they are confused, no, sir.
Good. I like your show. I like how you call homosexuality an abomination.
I don't say homosexuality is an abomination, Mr. President. The Bible does.
Yes, it does. Leviticus
18:22.
chapter and verse. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions while I had you here. I'm interested in selling my youngest daughter into slavery, as sanctioned in Exodus 21:7. She's a Georgetown sophomore, speaks fluent Italian, always cleared the table when it was her turn. What would a good price for her be? While thinking about that, can I ask another? My chief of staff, Leo McGarry, insists on working on the Sabbath. Exodus 35:2 clearly says he should be put to death. Am I morally obligated to kill him myself, or is it okay to call the police? Here's one that's really important, because we've got a lot of sports fans in this town. Touching the skin of a dead pig makes one unclean, Leviticus 11:7. If they promise to wear gloves, can the Washington Redskins still play football? Can Notre Dame? Can West Point? Does the whole town really have to be together to stone my brother John for planting different crops side by side? Can I burn my mother in a small family gathering for wearing garments made from two different threads? Think about those questions, would you? One last thing. While you may be mistaking this for your monthly meeting of the ignorant tight-ass club, in this building when the president stands, nobody sits.
So, if you claim practice what you preach, why is it that you can pick and choose what verses to live by? Continuing a look into the religious side of homosexuality, my hero Michael Moore makes a separate point.
I mean, the Catholic Church has led the fight against people who happen to be gay or lesbian. They've led the fight against abortion and trying to control women and their decisions about what to do with their bodies. And yet nowhere in the Bible, nowhere in the New Testament, does Jesus say one single word about homosexuality or abortion. Not a word. He had bigger fish to fry, other things on his mind about how the poor were to be treated, how we are to treat our neighbor, how we're to love our enemy. He never talked about these things. He has been used as a club by certain people who call themselves Christians to beat down other people who find themselves either in the predicament of an unwanted pregnancy or simply because of their birth, they happen to be gay or lesbian.
I think it's pretty awesome that even thinking about when I was in high school 13, 14 years ago, that there was, I had friends who identified as gay and identified as bisexual, but there wasn't any support system for them. I certainly didn't know any teachers who acted supportive, who had stickers that said well, this is a safe zone or that sort of thing. That just didn't exist, and that was the late 90s, which seems like it would have been more progressive than that. There's obviously still tons of progress to be made. I mean, there's don't ask, don't tell. In the military, there's plenty of positions where people are forced to hide who they really are in order to keep their jobs. But I think it's great that teaching is generally not one of them.
I think it's pretty awesome, because I think it would have been really scary to be me in the past with the way I am, the way I act, the kind of people I like and hang out with. It would have been a really scary thing because nobody would have hired me, nobody would have hung around me. My parents would have probably disowned me because I was a rebel child, kicked me out on this curb as soon as I was 17. So I'm really glad that there's a lot more acceptance now than there was once upon a time. And I think it's kind of annoying that people are whining, oh, everything sucks. There's no acceptance whatsoever, No, it's a lot better now than it ever was. So.
It's extra. I mean, the GSAs didn't even begin until 1989. Some years, 15 years or so after, you know, some of those struggles we referred to. So it is, again, it wasn't some sort of natural linear progression. It took the conscious intervention of organized individuals who were fighting and battling for our rights, who made that happen. I don't think we should take these things for granted, because as we've seen over the last decade, civil rights can also be taken away by people in positions of power, which is why we need to fight, we need to organize, and frankly, I think ultimately we need to build a different kind of a society that's built on equality and based on human need and not for profit. That's why I'm a socialist.